Greetings, welcome to Paint Here Now. I am Will Parody, and we are going to work on this painting today. We started this last week, and we've done it in, our sessions here, 20 minutes, half hour, give or take. And we've started with a bunch of small strokes and circles and started to build them together to create sort of larger shapes and forms. And then we started to make these smaller dots and find these real specific shapes and forms that sort of radiate out. There's almost a pulsing, ripply effect in this, and I like that. And we're going to basically just continue this today. Now, this may well be the last day we work on this piece as a project here or as a lesson. But I am probably going to work on it some more because I do paint oftentimes very thick and textured and super detailed, and I'll go on, and I don't know if I'm going to continue to do that as part of these lessons. I might film them and do some other lessons in addition, because a lot of it is just going on in painting. But we're going to get it to a place today that I think is worthy of what we've been doing, and who knows, maybe I'll do the thick painting lesson on this too. We'll see what happens. But we're going to keep going. I'll take a quick look at the palette. Again, we're continuing to use the same paints, more or less. I've had them covered. I like to use them so they are still wet. I like to use an ice cube tray. They're recessed. I can put something over it, and it keeps them pretty well from drying. So we're going to continue that. If we need to grab some more colors, we will. But I like to try to continue to use the palette. We may throw a few surprises on here. We'll see. We have our little brush jar. Some of the brushes we're using. We'll start with that one. And we'll start working on this piece then. All right. So I look at this piece now and I say, so what do we want? One of the things that I kind of want to do here is I want to start doing something a little different this time. Rather than doing a bunch of these small strokes like what I've been doing, I'm going to take a wetter kind of a brush. In fact, I'm going to pour a little bit of my painting water here, a little bit of this water in an empty, just a touch, just a little water into one of these empty trays so I can keep my paints very well thin. And what I'm going to do is I want to mix a bit of a gray here. Start with this blue, and it's almost a purple. It's a nice purple. So let's add just a touch of green into this. Not too much. Okay, I like what we're getting here. It's a greenish, more of a green color, but that's a good thing to start with. And add a little bit of this pink. So I think that's going to really make it interesting here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like this. Whoops. I'm dripping a little water here. We got to, make sure we keep the tray upright. Best we can while still trying to show you some things. So we've got this. What I want to do is, again, I'm really wetting it a lot, and I'm going to come in here in some of these areas and just sort of putting larger marks together, almost a wash in certain areas to try to just sort of connect some of these dots a little. Notice how thin it is. It covers the white and it covers the other paint, but you can barely see it. It's almost a trace. It's almost like the ghost of color. The ghost of Christmas color. Anyways. So we're just kind of adding that in areas that are either a bit empty and or I feel like they need to be a little bit more connected in with some of the other thing. Like there's a little bit of white and mess, not mess per se, but in here. So by sort of adding to it in a way, we're going to help to solve it. And it's nice and gray. It's helping to bring some things back. It's bringing out a lot of the bolder colors. That you might see here. I like that. That's nice. And it's just, it helps to bring in the shapes a little more together and create new ones even with some of these other areas and bring a little bit more interest to the piece, I think, as well as just connectivity. And that nice gray, it kind of goes, it's the gray was mixed with a lot of the colors that are in here. So it goes with things. It breaks up the circles some. Let's see what happens in here. Oh yeah, it comes in, that's kind of nice. Got a little green there though. Let's add a little bit. See if we get some of that more gray color back as we are blending and mixing it and using it, of course. Some other colors get in there or we run out or run low there. I like that. Bring that up in here. Just finding these little patches to add just a little bit of this faint kind of ghost of a color. And again, we're still using a lot of the same principles that we used when using the small marks and making these circles and stuff. We're still following a pattern and a count and where the eye leads us with what we're doing. You know, we're looking to these areas and then we're seeing which ones will work. You know, where we really need some attention. And it's part of the movement, again, of the piece. Coming around, connecting everything somehow. Making it all work and make some kind of sense. Even though it's not of anything that has a rational value to the brain. Or should I say a representational value to the brain. It's a different kind of making sense. To pull together an abstraction and create a beautiful connection between these colors and forms. I'm actually going to step back for a second. I really like what we're doing here. I think this was a good idea, and it helps to almost bring in a little bit of a sense of abstract depth, and I like that sometimes in pieces like this. So we are going to continue then to build these kinds of colors. Oh, that's very bright. I knew that would be. Really interesting stuff. I really like this. Just making these nice. They're cool. They are kind of on the cool, like as in warm and cool side, but they're also just really neat on that kind of a cool side. Really interesting gray, bluish green gray here. Really nice color. Look at how cool and neat that is. So we're going to start bringing that in some areas. So make it just a little bit thinner with a little more water. Kind of following some circles and connecting some of these larger shapes and groups. And again, my brush strokes that I'm using for these, I'm trying to use a stroke indicative of a lot of the motion of these other strokes, not just painting, using a big brush and painting back and forth. I want to still fit the groove and the feel and the motion of the piece that we've been building. Just using a slightly different approach, or at least a slightly different, a scheme of color and form to connect it all. I really like that. I like this. This is a nice color used for so many things. So sometimes I'll overdo it when I find a nice color and I want to keep using it. So we'll see if that happens here. I think that where we're covering some of these areas that don't have as much paint, we're doing it with a really nice color to do that with. It's a beautiful color in and of itself. It's subtle. It's not going to overpower the other colors. On the contrary, it will help to bring a lot of them out. So now we're going to add just a little bit of white. I'm curious now since I realized I have white here. So it's a different thing. It's still thinned out, but now I've just got a little bit more white. That might help in some of these areas. in some spots just to cut through the dark a little bit, add some nice contrast in these grays and in these movements of ours. Again, helps with the visual interest, helps keep the flow of things, the flow of the eye moving around some. And we're still keeping our nice gray shapes and squares, blocks and connecting forms. Good stuff. I like what's happening here. Let's come in a little bit more in here with a little bit more the thinned out, slightly grayed white. Whoops, kind of like, whoops. Let's see, kind of like this. Nice, okay. Coming around here with this nice color. Oh yeah, that was a good mark. Needed it too, actually. Gonna bring in a little of that darker back in here. Yeah, all right. Does help to, again, with this gray, it's amazing how it can really bring things together. I wouldn't be doing these washed out, kind of even washed out colors of this all over with like a bright bold red or blue. It would really change everything so much, even if it was subtle and washed out with what we have here. Now, some pieces, sure, it might call for that, but this piece, I don't feel like that's what it's doing. So, keep going with some more really nice color. All right, so now we've used most of it up that we've mixed. So rather than do more, sometimes if you mix a color and then you run out of it as you're using it, sometimes that means it's time to go to another spot or another color form, another area or another approach. Rather than, oh, we got to mix the color and keep going. Sometimes that's a good sign to say, all right, let's stop and reassess and look, and what do we need to do? Let's work on this here and then see what happens. Do we still need to mix more of this color? No, we don't. Okay, cool. Yes, we do. All right, we will. So there's a real, there becomes a sense of being able to assess and see the needs of things if you can take a break and step back from a certain area. And running out of a color of paint is one good way to be able to do that. So right now I'm adding in, going to stand a little different than usual. This is tough with the lighting and just the position for these kinds of painting, but I'm adding some white, some more or less unmixed white marks, again, into some of these areas that got really nice and gray or mixed with color. Not a whole lot of value contrast, so I want to add some of that. Might be a bit much in there. Again, here. Fact. Well, we'll come back to that. I do like that. That does break up. It almost, if I add a little bit more of that white in here, it definitely almost makes a whiter section in here than some of these other areas. That's, now, of course, I'm helping with that. Connect it. And we'll see. I like that because it starts to bring out some bolder. I mean, white's a color that can go back and forth. It depends, but there's no denying on top of grays or other colors, it does pop out. So that's what we kind of got going on here, and that's nice to see. So I'm going to extend it a little bit in some areas. Very nice. Now I just sort of followed this curve that was here that starts to bring some of these circles back out, which is pretty interesting, these patterns. So stick with that. Happens if we put this mark up here. It does. It changes things. It makes this feel less linear, and now it feels more, circular, organic, and connected. One more here. Good enough. All right. And a little bit more white into, like, these white marks into some of these other areas that have the potential for some boldness. Kind of pure color or non-color as the case may be. Nonetheless, it is pure and it stands out above the grays. So we're going to put some more in like that just to try not to overdo it, because this concept here of this extra white is real nice. Add a little bit more in here. I think that connects well in here. Maybe with a line or two there. That's visually all right. And a little bit more in here. Again, not trying to cover too much because we've got some nice colors in there. And we don't want to overdo. Definitely want to add some more of this. Okay, well, we're getting close. So what I might do now, a little bit in here, but not too much. Step back and look. All right, so I'm going to try something here a little bit different. Maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this purple, and then some of this pink. And I'm going to mix these together. That is a nice color. And it in and of itself is not really a color that we have on this yet. We've used both these colors, but we haven't really mixed them quite like that. So now we look and see, where might this need a bit of this bold? Do we keep it to these shapes to make them bring out, or do we go to some areas? Like in here, for example, it would be a strong, well, we're going to do it. Yeah. Because again, we're trying to keep this nice and abstract. In a painting like this, if we focus too much on these or shapes, then it becomes about something again. So we want to be able to, like, oh, these have to have the bolder colors and this is in the background and foreground. I don't want to focus on the painting that way. I want to keep it with an abstract visual sense of composition that goes beyond depth and normal sense of depth and space and background, foreground. I want it to pop more than that. So I'm adding some of these kind of just based on where I feel there's a nice rhythm of things. I don't want them all to be in the same direction. So we'll move them around a little. And the more we do, the less bold and contrasting they are as, of themselves. So we'll do this, maybe something like that. And then what we're going to do is add a little bit of white to this. And this one is not quite as bold as you can see. So we're just going to, but it does stick out nicely against some of these other grays. So we're just going to kind of add it in for that extra bit of visual interest. It helps to know this color, which is acting a little bit like this, but it's much more subdued, and I'm using smaller strokes and whatnot. That is what this ends up doing visually, is it really helps to connect these in a little bit more with the grays and the more muddled background and the smaller strokes, while still maintaining a strong contrast that these have, that boldness. It just connects them a little bit more with the piece as a whole without taking away their real boldness. So I think that's a cool thing to see and to be able to utilize in a piece. So I like that. It's interesting. Now we have something that's much more dynamic going on, I think. Something that's not just about these types of circles. Now it feels much more abstract. We're going to go with that a little bit here, I think. I like this concept. So what I'm going to do is take some green I have here and then a good bit of yellow. Green and yellow here. This is going to make a nice bold color. Do something similar where I want to see like some strong sense of form in here. Like I want to put some green and I'm wondering where. Do I put it straight like this? If I do, things go more this way. If I put it this way, it parallels this. It strengthens this line. This way is an interesting contrast. That's what I'm going to do. It's bold enough so that in this nice perpendicular, and then we perpendicular it to itself over here because that's where it's calling. Just adding it a little bit here and there, especially in some areas where it might stand out, where it's fairly light or dark. Since we started, started up here and we kept going. I like this little line of these greens that keeps climbing up this. So we're going to do that a little bit more. And just see like they come up here and they dance around some and it really leads it up there. And even add a little bit of this to just whoa, and it's starting to bring the eye again into the yellows, into the piece. Oh. There, that's all right. So we've got a little blend happening in here. Okay, so that kind of connects it a little bit in here. So I'm going to do something else a little bit on the bold side. I am going to take some of this. Where is it? There we go. Some of this here blue. Mixing it up a little bit, putting it on my brush, flattening it out some, kind of like this. And with this darker, bolder blue, again, we're going to come into some areas where we want to give some contrast and add a little bit of visual interest as well as, the direction. There we go. Directing the eye. And I'm going to bring this one, rather than totally following this green, we're going to put a little bit there. I'm going to bring this more strongly up here. And it curves up some, kind of like this did, and starts to connect this up a little bit more. Interesting. All right. So that is kind of neat. I like where this is going. And this could work now more as an abstract piece in and of itself. I still feel like I may go and do some more work on this. Or I may continue the lessons on this piece, but there's definitely some other basics and concepts that I want to cover and recover since we've been doing this for a little bit. I want to make sure people can get caught up with some of our concepts, color concepts and form concepts. But I do like where we're headed with this painting right now. I feel a lot better about it as a piece that has some greater abstract strength and interest of its own, as opposed to just being a bunch of dots that make some circles. It's a good place to start. Sometimes it's a nice piece to do that, and you can find different things. But I feel like this definitely changes it up some for us. Gives us a little bit more boldness and interest and stronger contrast, and gives it a little bit more of an abstract feel with these bolder colors that are sticking right out here. I'm going to take some of this regular pure purple and just add a bit more in here where there's already some, and kind of spread it out a little bit like that. Now that makes for a strong, interesting contrast. We're going to find a little bit more in here, which helps to connect it up. And then I see a little bit up in here. So it could have come in there too, but I like this in here. And now we have these kind of these purple areas. Which bring the eye a little bit more around. Again, I'm putting more in, which is going to bring them in some, take away a little of their contrast, but it's okay to do that. Find little ways to just connect in and make things a little bit stronger here and there. I do like that. So yeah, see, we started to have a nice, fun, abstract piece here. We were not afraid to cover up things we've already done, to cover strokes and things like that, to go over things, to use some grays, to wash, then to put strong marks. And then with all this painting we've done and all this vibration, when we start to add these bolder, strong strokes like this on top of it, it really pops out, and it really starts to create a nice dynamic. A big part of painting is the visual interest, and this has visual interest. A little bit more white here, and I want to kind of like spread it out some, like there's an implosion there almost. In fact, and then keep it a little bit more solid in the center. Interesting. So that's an interesting way. This is like, I'm not 100% sold on it, to be honest with you. Kind of like this in here, where I'm doing, it's a little bit more of that helps in here some. But you know what? I think what I want to do is go back to some of our other colors, our palette, and just, I don't want it to be quite so faded out like that. There. A little bit more to, for some reason that area felt like it needed a little something. Maybe that's that. Let me see here. There, I like that a little bit better. And then, okay, I'm taking some straight pink. That's what I'm going to do. Like, where am I putting it? I am going right in here. Something like that. And then, again, maybe some more in here. That helps it make a little bit more sense. And maybe since we've got some nice pink in here, it makes sense to put some there too. So it does kind of continue on. Now, okay, I like this a lot more than I did a minute ago, or even 20 seconds ago. I think that pink helps a lot. A whole lot of painting, especially abstract painting and finding a piece, is coming across things you don't like. It means you're experimenting. It means you're trying things you haven't tried before, and you're exploring the possibilities of what you can do with your materials. So that's more than okay, because we keep painting and we find stuff that works and that we like. And then I'm going to do one more thing here, and then I think we might take a look and step back, and we might work on this piece again next week. We'll see. We might do some extra lessons on this piece. I definitely want to keep working on some different concepts and ideas through these lessons. and just throwing in a few of these bold yellows with these other bold colors we have. It's harder because yellow will, as you can see, it blends in pretty easy with other colors there. So it's not gonna have quite the same impact, but it's a very strong color, so it will have impact nonetheless. And now I feel like things are connecting more. Some of these big marks now are connecting in and almost blending in with our back circles, as opposed to just covering them or dancing on top of them. But there's still a difference and a distinction, and I like that. And then if we could have this and then just angle it just a little bit. There we go. Connect it like that a little maybe. One more. Right like this. See, and again, we can just keep going and going. I have enough of this green. I know I'm running out of my colors on this palette we've been using. It's about time. I've been using them well. Some of them dried a little though. That's all right. That happens. What I'm thinking is something in here is still feeling like it needs, and that might be it. Was that the one? All right, we're getting there. Let's do one more nice green stroke right in here. And one more right in here. There's that green already. Connects up in here. All right, whoa, I like that. That's nice on this white. That really brought this green out in here. It darkens it some even compared to some of these other yellows and greens. Brings your eye up over here. I think that's a good place. This is not a terrible, this is not a terrible place. It's actually a halfway decent little abstract experiment we've got going on here. I'm not sure if I would call it finished, but it's strong. I like a lot of the work that we've done with some of the bolder colors, and we'll probably take another look at it. It's feel like it wants to dry some and sit for a little bit in this case, and we'll work on it some more later. All right, so all right, so here we are. We have a piece we've been working on. I like what we've done today. I like how we've taken it to a different step. We've taken it beyond. We've been spending a few days painting these small dots and making these circles and impressionist-like thing, and now we've come on with these big bold marks over some of it to create a new sense of space and depth, as well as to change what these images were doing in our eyes and mind. And it's really I think it's much more interesting. And we might actually work on it a little bit more. See, it's something with a piece like this, you can find a spot where you like it and like, that's all right. I think that's good. But you can always keep going. It's almost impossible to say you have to stop here. It's done. Anything else will kill it. Because the more that you paint on a piece and layer and work it in, the more you build a universe. It's like saying, adding 2 more nebulas in this galaxy is going to just destroy everything. No, it's going to add new opportunities for growth. So that's how I look at it. So we had fun working on this piece. We'll come back next week and we may work on it again. I have no promises to what next week is going to hold for our lessons, but I have a feeling we'll be revisiting this some more. And if I just decide to work on it some, well, I'll certainly share the results. But we'll go from here. I think we spent a couple weeks building this piece. I think what we did today was really nice as an example of how to take it to a further place and use a different approach on something in order to add a new level of interest and then connect it in to still add a harmony. And again, I think we have some more work we can do on this, but we'll see. In the meantime, I hope everybody has a great weekend and is doing well. Enjoy yourself. Love each other as best you can, and keep making art. Thank you all for your ear and your time.